After 9 years, Beaumont Hills hadn't really altered. The air still smelled of superiority and well-kept roses. The scuffs of my previous shoes were still visible on every cobblestone leading to the country club's entrance. Perhaps that's because my name wasn't on the guest list, but I didn't hesitate. I got out of the black sedan and adjusted my cufflinks. This wasn't about being polite. I knew as soon as I read the email invitation that I wasn't supposed to get it. It wasn't even about finding closure. It was about proving to them that I was still alive and that I had changed. Inside, chandeliers glistened with the weight of ancient money that forgets people, dripping light like golden tears. Even though I wasn't meant to be in that room, I entered it as though it were mine. I heard music playing, courteous laughter, and the sound of pricey champagne being poured into flutes thinner than air. I didn't flinch. Instead, I grinned as my shoes clicked against marble that cost more than my first apartment. The scene was dramatic, and every excellent movie has that pause, that breath, before the audience realizes what's happening. And then, Claudia. Whitmore's ice-chilled voice cut through the atmosphere. She stood up straight, her gaze finding me. She interrupted the conversation around her champagne glass and asked, "Why?" Her voice snapped like a bowstring. She wasn't failing here. She was furious. Her words weren't whispered. They weren't cloaked in passive aggression. She screamed them, proud, harsh, expected, because the crowd was so well known for not pretending to be kind. She had the same rigid shoulders, the same pearls looped around her throat like a leash she willingly wore. I didn't flinch as my ex-wife, Juliet, appeared and stood close to the marble bar. She was laughing with a group of women, their shoes clicking like condemnation, their perfume thick with designer remorse. She turned slowly, elegantly, her gaze lingering on me with the same indifference you might show a fly on your skin. "You're not on the guest list," she said, in that honeyed voice sharpened by ice. And there she was, Juliet Whitmore, once my wife, now a stranger. Her outfit shone as if it had something to prove, sequins catching the light like armor. I remembered when I used to unzip those dresses, back when she was still laughing, still calling. My name in the dark as if it meant something. She dismissed me with a glance. That should have been the moment I turned around, shrunk like a decent ex-husband, and vanished into whatever failure they believed I became. But I didn't. I grinned, slow and sharp, after the credits rolled. I didn't move, didn't raise my voice, didn't plead for dignity. I said in a low enough voice to be a secret and a storm. "The thing with ghosts is, the house is still haunted. Loud enough for nearby tables to hear, just enough to echo." I saw the words curl around Claudia's throat, saw Juliet's eyes twitch, her friends whispered. Her fingers trembled ever so slightly over her glass. But she didn't waver. The music played on, but quieter somehow. The room bent toward the tension like iron drawn to a magnet. I didn't stay long after that. I walked the ballroom like a man touring a museum of his own history. I remembered the oil paintings of donors, their eyes vacant in gilded frames. The world that once rejected me, chewed me out like gum under a shoe, now watched in silence. I wasn't here to beg for re-entry. I was here to remind them I never left. As I reached the exit, someone whispered, "Was that Silas?" "Yes, Silas Whitmore." I kept the name, not because I loved it, but because it made them uncomfortable. I wanted it to appear on every document, every news story, every plaque bearing my work, to remind them I was the man they tried to erase. The valet blinked. A suit that fit him too well, a jaw rebuilt from grit and shame. "Vehicle 4?" he asked. I replied calmly. "Silas Whitmore." And as he ran too, "Fetch it." I allowed myself one glance back, not from longing, from warning. This time I wasn't arriving empty-handed. They rewrite history in places like Beaumont Hills, with subtle omissions and polished lies. Money and power tried to scrub me out, but I remember everything. Once I was the heart of Juliet's world, her partner, her husband. I held her trembling hands when her first boutique opened. I sketched the storefront on a napkin while she cried over spreadsheets. I poured sweat into the brand the Whitmores now brag about, from a diner we couldn't afford, but I was never truly family. To them, I was a novelty, a project. Diversity with potential. Gregory Whitmore once joked I was Juliet's pet, with promise. I should have known then, but I smiled, believed love could soften cruelty. Instead, it unraveled slowly. Claudia once corrected my grammar in front of donors. Juliet laughed until she cried. Her father told me I should attend fewer meetings and focus on helping. That night I wore a tie. We had dinner, crystal glasses, sharp conversation. Juliet wore a scarlet dress that looked like devotion. I saw her glance at me and thought, maybe we were still okay. But halfway through dinner, Claudia whispered something to Gregory. He nodded. By dessert, they were done with me. When I got home that night, the porch light was off. The door wouldn't open. 2 suitcases sat out back, where we once snuck wine into the garden. Juliet didn't call. She just texted, 4 words of apology and you're on your feet, I called. She didn't answer. Gregory arrived in his Jaguar. No tie. Just power wrapped in entitlement. This is for the best, he said. You'll thank us later. And that was it. No argument, no tears, just a sentence like a closing door. They didn't just break up with me. They erased me, my name, disappeared from her website. My drawings vanished from the store. Friends stopped answering. Invites stopped coming. I slept in my car. Then on Terrence's couch. He was one of the few who didn't vanish. All I had was a sketch pad and a hollow ache. I walked the city alone. Then one day, I saw someone take a selfie in front of Juliet's boutique, an old design of mine, now attributed entirely to her. The article called her the epitome of originality. But those ideas, those hands, they were mine. Silence hurt the most, not the couch, not the hunger, not even Juliet. They threw me out with champagne and counterfeit kindness, and rewrote the ending so I looked like the one who left. But the truth? They feared what I could become without them, and they were right to, because rock bottom wasn't a metaphor. It was a one-room studio above a bakery. It smelled like burnt coffee. The radiator clanged like it hated breathing. Trash cans outnumbered people. But I had a door, and I had silence that was mine. I started freelancing, drawing kitchens, basements. I delivered furniture to families who thought throw pillows made them continental, but I kept drawing. My sketchbook listened, even when the world didn't, until I met Terrence Clay. No gold watch, no arrogance, just a man with kind eyes and quiet dignity. At a small expo, he stared at one of my renderings, a building that looked like it grew from the earth. You did this? He asked. I nodded, and that's when it started. He said, I've got a small development firm, mid-budget work, but we could use someone with vision. And just like that, I was back at the drafting table.